Hi friends, welcome back. I'm a little late on this one, so apologies for that. I try to film when I'm home alone, which is most Friday mornings, but my family deviated from their routines last week, so that deviated me from mine. They don't know the full extent of what I'm trying to pay off, and it's very easy to eavesdrop in our house, so it just works better if I'm recording when no one is here to overhear me. Only a couple days beyond my normal though, so not too bad. Before we get into my budgets, I also want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has liked and commented and subscribed over the last couple of weeks. I don't know what's going on, I don't know what YouTube is doing, and I don't know how I'm suddenly on the cusp of 100 subscribers, but I really appreciate each and every one of you and all of the support that I've gotten so far. When I recorded my first video, I figured I'd be talking to maybe 5 people at this point, so this is absolutely wild to me. Anyway, as per usual, we're starting with a review of my previous paycheck budget, so 1031 in this case. And friends, let me tell you, this one stressed me out a lot, even though it was my third paycheck in the month, and therefore roughly $150 higher than usual since my benefits were not taken out. My budgeted paycheck amount was my normal budgeted paycheck amount, $2,717. My actual paycheck amount ended up being $2,871.76. So again, starting off about $150 higher than what I had budgeted. My fixed expenses ended up coming out to about $16 higher than what I budgeted because I forgot that this was the month when my New York Times subscription was returning to the previous rate of $26.50 per 4 weeks, which you can see here. As a side note, I don't understand why they do that. I don't understand why it's a 4-week subscription rather than just being monthly like everybody else. It's a pain for budgeting purposes because I have to actually count out which Monday I'm on in order to budget it in, as opposed to just being able to say, yes, it's the same day this month every month. But that's what they're doing, so I guess we're going to go with it. I did go through after this hit and told them I was going to cancel again. So they once again offered me the promo rate of $5 per 4 weeks for the next year. So the higher rate at least is only for this month, and I'll just have to make sure that I have flagged to go back and either threaten to cancel if they give me a good rate again or actually cancel next year. I do read it enough to justify $5 for every 4 weeks, but not enough to justify almost $30. So we'll see about that. But that is the only real deviation. Everything else that I run through in the fixed expenses category was the same as usual, which brought me to total fixed expenses of $929.97 versus my budgeted of $914, and brought me down to a leftover amount of $1,941.79 versus budgeted of $1,803. For my variable expenses, I ended up spending way less on gas than I had budgeted. It ended up only being $33.29 versus a budgeted amount of $75, which happened because of the timing of when I got my car back from the body shop, since it had a full tank of gas when I dropped it off, and also because my insomnia has been really bad for the last few weeks, and I really haven't been going to run club or to ride my horse anywhere near as often as I usually do because I've been completely exhausted, which is not ideal, but is what it is until I can claw myself back out of this hole into something that feels vaguely like a functional person again. Being under budget on gas also only partially offset my unexpected expense, which was the visit to the Apple store that I talked about last week to replace my broken AirPod, which cost me $73.83 because it was not covered under warranty anymore. The charge from Enterprise for my rental also hit. Grand total of $348, which was about $100 more than I had thought last video because I forgot about a whole bunch of the fees and the taxes relating to it. But I didn't put that in here in the actual variable expenses amount because that came out of my car maintenance fund and didn't actually impact my overall budget. Excluding the rental car, my variable expenses ended up totaling $157.12 versus my budgeted amount of $125, which brings me down to a leftover balance of $1,784.67 versus budgeted of $1,678. Coming up to savings, this ended up being $150 more than what I usually budget of $955 for a total of $1,105 because I routed all the extra money from my paycheck to my horse account because he had to have radiographs taken and some blood work done during our most recent vet visit. And I am happy to report that the radiographs showed continued improvement in what we've been monitoring, and his blood work was also normal, but the visit did cost me a grand total of $596. This resulted in me having to pull a little bit of money out of my other savings, less than $100, but still. I only had to do that because of timing, because literally all of his supplements, except one, have refilled in the last 2 months, and his account is a little bit out of sync. That is not normal. They're all on a different refill cadence. They just all happen to somehow hit right now, which should cease to be a problem next year. And I really don't intend to make a habit out of pulling from savings, but in this case, I decided that it was a lesser evil than carrying any additional balance on my credit cards. So that is what it is. After savings, I ended up with an actual total of $679.67 left over versus budgeted of $723. This does not take into account what I pulled out of savings. This is just what is going on with my paycheck because I don't track my savings in here beyond contributions. I digress. My debt payments were what I was expecting, $595 to my bank Visa, so that just is what it is. All told, I ended up with about $85 left over, $84.67 versus a budgeted amount of $128, which is a pretty accurate representation of what was left in my checking account after moving money out of savings and all of the fun of this paycheck. So I'm glad that this is over because I did not enjoy it. And yeah, that is that one. We're going to try really hard to not have to pull anything else out of savings except for the stuff that is supposed to come out of savings, like my car maintenance. All right. Moving on to my most recent paycheck. Month of November. Paycheck date of 11/14. I'm filming this on the 18th, so it's been a few days. But we are back to our normal budgeted paycheck amount in my budget of $27.17. Because this is back to a normal 2-paycheck month. There are very few fixed expenses in this pay period. It is basically just my YouTube stuff, except for my TFD membership because that hits at the beginning of the month. I'm debating about dropping the 2 memberships that I have on here for a while because while I do love the creators that I am a member of, I have not really been watching their content enough to justify keeping the membership or tuning into lives frequently enough. And I can always just start the memberships again if I'm watching their content more. But I think I'm going to just let this month renew and try to keep track of how many times I watch their videos before the memberships renew again in December, and then make the decision about whether or not I want to cancel them, because one of them, most of their content is members only now. So I won't be able to watch anything if I cancel that one. So we will see. Either way, total fixed expenses for this paycheck are $33, none of which have hit yet, so I can't put any actuals in. And that leaves me with a budgeted leftover amount of $2,684. My variable expenses are different for this pay period. Instead of my usual $50 for therapy, it's going to be $100 just because I had to move some sessions around because of Thanksgiving. So timing-wise, I just have 2 hitting in this pay period instead of 1, which is fine. It should work out on the other end, actually. Gas gets to stay at $75 because my boss worked some magic and she and I are not moving offices now, which means I get to keep my 10-minute commute and use less than a gallon of gas on my drive to work every week. So I love that for me. And I'm also going to add a food budget, which I am flagging as cash because I'm planning to take it out of the bank so that I can just keep it in a folder. If I don't use it, I don't use it. If I do, I do. I don't mean a folder, I mean an envelope. I don't know what I'm saying. This is going to be $50 for this pay period because I had to buy stuff to make pies for Friendsgiving this past weekend. Every other paycheck, I'm going to just go with $20 because most of what I will end up spending that on is going to be stuff like a chai latte, which should not cost me $20. So that brings my total variable expenses down to $225 and my remaining balance down to $2,459 for this paycheck. Which brings us up here to my savings. Most of this is the same. So horse account, car insurance, car maintenance, my cats, my emergency fund, and one additional thing that I am adding this month, which is saving money for a pair of proper sleep headphones. I know that this will probably seem like an unnecessary expense to you guys and a waste of $60 a month because I'm going to budget $30 per paycheck towards this. But honestly, like I mentioned earlier in this video, I'm an insomniac. I have been for about a decade and a half. Sometimes it's better than others, but it's something I've struggled with for a very long time. And the best way that I found to actually fall asleep is to listen to meditations when I go to bed. Between breaking one of my AirPods and giving myself a bone bruise previously in my ear canal from sleeping in them, I have concluded that it's time for me to upgrade to a pair of proper sleep headphones that are designed for that, particularly because I am a side sleeper. So increased risk of another bone bruise anyway. I just generally feel like shit when I don't sleep, and it does not help with my organization or my impulse control when I am sleep deprived. So I consider this an investment in my well-being rather than a superfluous purchase. Either way, regardless of how you guys may feel about that choice, that brings my savings total to $985 for this paycheck and a remaining balance of $1,474. On to my debt payments, we have a total of $1,391 because yes, I did pre-budget this out before filming this video, as I always do. First payment is my credit union Visa, which is still only $55. Still got the promo rate of 2.9% on this one, so it actually does a pretty decent chunk of the balance that's on there. $600 to my Chase card, which I've also already paid. $152 to my highest interest Discover card, as per usual. $520 to my other Discover card, also as per usual. I don't know why I filled the actuals in there. I cannot pay these until the end of this week because I need the statement periods to close first. And I know you could say pay them now, but since I have mapped everything out, this is the cadence that I am on. $52 to Affirm, which already paid at $51.96. And last but not least, an extra $75 to my Chase card, which I have paid already. Now, why extra payment to my Chase instead of my highest interest Discover card, you might ask? Because Chase just randomly decided to increase my interest rate by 2.75%, which makes that my highest interest rate card now, and therefore where all of my extra payments are going to go. I really do not understand the timing on this, because I've been actively paying this card down for almost a year now, and my credit score has actually been getting better. But what are credit card companies for if not predatory interest rates that try to keep you trapped under a mountain of debt? I've been paying more than the minimum anyway towards this one, so it's just how much more than the minimum am I paying? But not ideal. That card is at like 27% now, even after the Fed rate cuts. And I'm mad about it. Might call them and yell at them about why, because it makes no sense. I would have understood it a year ago when I was about to max the card out, and actually did max the card out at one point, but have not done that since, have been actively paying it down. Does not make sense why it would take them a year to decide that I am suddenly more of a risk than I was before, even though my balances are decreasing. I don't know. Anyway, total of $1,391, like I said, which brings me to a leftover total of $83. This is not ideal. I don't love it. It's not the cushion that I would normally be hoping for, but it is worth it to make that extra debt payment. And we are multiple days into this pay period at the time of filming, like I said, with no surprises. So hopefully it stays that way, and hopefully the extra food budget keeps me from going over budget on that. As far as updates on my debt balances go, there is not much to report other than Chase doing what Chase did. And also the balance on that card, since it's the only statement period that has closed since I last filmed. My total balance as of my most recent statement was down to $16,393.89, which brings my cumulative decrease on that card to $708.11, and my total decrease across all of my cards to $1,996.27 since my August balances that I reported in my first video. This means that I get to color in 2 stars here because I was just shy of getting to color in this one on my last statement. So this payment actually ended up bumping me down 2, which means that we're at roughly 4% of the starting balance paid off. So that's fun. As far as my credit score goes, still the same at 667, which means we get to color in an orange triangle again. Yay! I tell myself that someday this will change. Someday I will get to color in yellow instead of orange. Hopefully sooner than later, but we shall see. My Equifax and TransUnion scores are also still the same as they were before. Just reporting that even though I'm not tracking those with you guys. Now, what's next? Obviously, another paycheck budget in a couple of weeks. My 2026 financial bingo board, which I need to update a little bit due to the change in the Chase card situation. The story of my layoff experience, which I already filmed once, but it was all over the place, so I think I'm going to try to script that out before I film it again. And perhaps most importantly, a video about what I've spent on my horse in the 6.5 years that I have owned him. I was already planning to make that video, but I've gotten some questions about my spending in that area in the last week or so, and I'm hoping it'll provide some insight, even if there's disagreement about those choices afterward. Generally speaking, horse girl math means not doing the math, but I did. So, look out for that. I am a little scared. It's fine. Last night, I also went through the fun exercise of budgeting out literally every paycheck through the end of next year and updating my credit card payoff calculator using those as estimated payments. So that is a big input into selecting the bingo board squares and should help me keep things realistic for enough of them to stand some chance of making bingo. If anyone would be interested in a video with a general overview of those budgets, let me know. They don't take into account my theoretical raise in the spring or any bonus that I might get, so they're about as conservative as I can be based on current information. But they may be interesting. I don't know. Also, let me know if you would prefer me to split these videos to do one video of just reviewing my previous paycheck and one video of my current paycheck, or if we're good with this format, combining both. It makes no difference to me. I will probably still film them at the same time and just end up saving one file versus 2. So let me know what you guys would prefer on that. And otherwise, that is it for me for this video. Thanks again to everybody who has subscribed and interacted over the last couple of weeks and months. And I will talk to you again soon. Bye.